When I saw this number, I laughed. I saw a study that showed that people who get financially literate when they are at the college level, it has the impact of $100,000 in additional money in their life. $100,000. That is peanuts. If you look at all of the great decisions we can make and how coming to a fork in the road and taking the wrong fork in the road leads to huge differences.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together. Welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I am your co-host, Jackie Cummings-Koski, with my wonderful co-host, Bill Yount. Bill, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and we're talking about financial education and financial literacy today because it's Financial Literacy Month, April, right, Jackie?
Yes, a lot of people may not know, but April is Financial Literacy Month. I have been celebrating this for over 10 years, and I want everybody to celebrate with me. So this Financial Literacy Month is very, very special because we decided we wanted to bring on a very important guest that has as much passionate about financial literacy, probably more than I do, and that is Paul Merriman. So Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jackie. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, we brought you back. We had a show with you and Rick Ferry. That was so awesome. We love a great spirited debate from smart people. So one of the things that really interested us, and this came up at the end of it, because we really love what you were doing with financial literacy. You have a nonprofit. So I'd like to start out. Tell us a little more about your nonprofit inside of the university and brag about it a little bit.
And you also have a great story that kind of leads us into this, because we want to avoid something, and you're helping us avoid something. Can you tell us that story?
Well, one of the things I'm always concerned about with the young people that we're educating is they will accumulate a fair amount of money, and all of a sudden, that fair amount of money looks like a commission to somebody who might be in the business of extracting a part of your money. Now, I was shocked. This goes back to probably 1983, 84. And I was in the process of building my investment advisory company. And I had an opportunity to join one of the people who worked for a national organization that sold limited partnerships. And somebody had asked me if I could check them out. And I think there were must have been 400 or so of these salespeople or consultants, however they positioned themselves. But they were there to learn from the head of the firm whose products they were using and selling. And we were in a theater, and the lights went down, and spotlight came down on the gentleman who was the head of this company. And as I turned to look, I saw him walking down the center aisle. He was wearing a white smock, a stethoscope around his neck, and he was carrying an elephant gun. I mean, it's a big gun. And he walked proudly up the stairs onto the stage and turned around and looked at the audience and said, "Today, I'm going to teach you to take down the big ones, doctors." You know that how that is, Bill.
I was taken down. I got shot. Absolutely got shot.
Well, and then he went on to spend the morning talking about how to sell, the psychological end of closing a sale, particularly with people who have a lot of wealth, and which includes saying very complimentary things to the doctor, because they like to be perceived as being intelligent and understanding so many things in the world, when in fact we know that many of them, including myself, I know the area I know really well, but you wouldn't come to me for a whole lot else than what I know about. And yet you can feed our egos. And if you feed our egos, they know we're more likely to write the check to be part of whatever that tax write-off was going to be. So anyway, I want to prepare these kids for that time when there'll be people who will crawl across crushed glass to get to them because there's money to be made if they can just talk you into doing something that they are selling.
Wow. And to me, that is probably, thank you for bringing that one up, Bill. That is probably one of the most important things. It's like when you're young, so whether it's your kids, whether it's yourself as a late starter, that there's people trying to target you. And what's the best defense to that is educating yourself.
Yeah. And the problem is that we all have is understanding how to evaluate the person who is our first mentor or our second mentor, the teacher in our life who made that difference. And unfortunately, in many cases, it may even be a well-meaning mentor who's simply trying to help you get started. And it's not unusual for older people to think it's a good idea for young people to make their mistakes on their own. They got to learn from their mistakes. No, I mean, Warren Buffett said it's so much better off to learn on other people's mistakes than to have to make them, because the cost of those mistakes can be so unbelievably high.
Yeah. So true. So true. So this is one of your early thoughts of how important financial literacy was. And you started this nonprofit inside the university. I want to hear more about that.
Well, we have two nonprofits. One is outside the university, and part of the money in that foundation also goes to Western. So they're all tied together. But when we started this recent program at Western, the attempt to make every student who leaves Western financially literate about the big important decisions they're going to make. I'm talking financial decisions. And yet we know it's way more than just about making good financial decisions. It's about how your life with your spouse might be if you and both your spouse are financially literate. We know that a lot of marriages fail because at least one of those people is not financially literate, and it causes some big problems. And so the idea is to get every one of these kids to come out of there ready to make the big decisions. Now, when I saw this number, I laughed. I saw a study that showed that people who get financially literate when they are at the college level, it has the impact of $100,000 in additional money in their life. $100,000. That is peanuts. If you look at all of the great decisions we can make and how coming to a fork in the road and taking the wrong fork in the road leads to huge differences. For example, load versus no load. That 0.5% basically you're paying per year to own a load fund is going to translate over a lifetime to over $1 million if you bought load funds for the rest of your life. Index funds versus active management. It's another $1 million decision. Market timing versus buy and hold, another $1 million. I mean, 100,000 is the chump change that people are going to make, I think. Literally, financially literate young person has the ability to add millions of dollars over their lifetime. And I'm not talking about this in terms of greed or avarice. I'm talking about when you might be able to retire. I'm talking about if you do retire later in life, having more to do the things you want to do. My wife and I are able to give money away at a percentage of what we have each year that is so much higher than I ever thought we would be able to do, because we did the right things along the way. So these decisions, there are just so many ways. Well, as a matter of fact, as I just said that, I realized there's another big one. If you are financially literate, your children are more likely to be financially literate because you become the mentor of sorts. And I know my kids, if you ask them about the things they learned when they were relatively small, they learned the difference between a load and a no load fund and an index fund and an actively managed fund. It was part of a ride in the car, little conversation we would have. It makes a difference. And my son, who's now 59, he has lived up to everything that I tried to teach him, and it's paid off.
I think that is such a great point. And a lot of our late starters, I think sometimes they're like, well, it's too late for me to course correct. I just want to retire on time. But I let them know and remind them, because I learned this myself, that everything that you learn, you can now teach it to your kids or other people in the younger generation that's in your life. So it can compound, and you're creating a legacy that way. So thinking about all the things that you taught your kids, everyone can do that. Even someone that is just waking up, just pulling the stuff together, everything that you're learning, you can share it with your kids or other young people in your life, and it's going to make a difference.
And by the way, Jackie, I think it's important to understand that if we start late, we still have the same decisions to make. And so from my viewpoint, the person who's starting late needs to kind of come to all those same forks in the road and make sure what they do from now on is the right thing to do. So I think it's the same set of problems for a 21-year-old and a 51-year-old. They got to make sure they got low expenses. They got to make sure they have proper diversification. All those things are important.
Agreed. And I want to make sure I get the name of the university right.
Here is at Western Washington University. They have a program called the Merriman Financial Literacy Program.
Gotcha.
And so people have donated money to that program. And while my wife and I are financial supporters, we know it's going to take more support than we are able to give to make sure that this on a long-term basis is going to continue to educate every student who comes through there.
Well, we hope that what you're doing or have done already with Western Washington University becomes a model for other universities, for other corporations where people are onboarded and need to learn this stuff with their first big boy paycheck or big girl paycheck. That's when the rubber meets the road. And if you don't get your savings and investing muscles right from the beginning, you're going to be a late starter.
Well, I think that's true, Bill. And there's one thing that made a huge difference at Western, and that is that we discovered an online course that can supplement the other things that we will be doing with the students. We have so many things going on. We have students who are mentoring other students. We have students who are going out to the public schools in the local community to teach young people. We have just all sorts of programs to try to help people who are asking for help get rolling in the right direction. But iGrad is such a phenomenal resource for us. And iGrad, what it does, it gives us access to an online course that is being used by hundreds, I think some 700 institutions. And part of the money that my wife and I have given underwrites the cost of having iGrad for all students at Western. And not only do they learn there's a regular course they can take. It'll take them probably 30 to 40 hours to complete. But when they leave Western, they get to take iGrad with them and all of the updates and things that make it a current piece of information. And from my viewpoint, they now have a partner that knows a lot about them, because what iGrad does, When I went into it, it knows how old I am. It knows how much money I have now. It knows about my risk tolerance. And it knows the things that I need to know. As an 81-year-old, on the other hand, the beauty is if I were 13, iGrad would ask for some information that's appropriate. I mean, it's all legal, but ask for information that would like a birth date or what year they were born, not the birth date itself, but what year they're born. And now all of a sudden, when they go to a particular topic, it's not the kind of information that an 81-year-old who's somewhat knowledgeable about the process. It feeds me an entirely different bunch of information because now it needs to teach a 13-year-old. And I just love that one family, could be sharing iGrad and letting different people in the family use it so that all of a sudden, this student at Western has got something truly valuable to offer to their family.
And one other thing you do is a boot camp, right? Can you tell us about the boot camp?
Well, Bootcamp is the best that we have to offer at paulmerriman.com. What we've done at Bootcamp is we've taken what we consider to be the biggest decisions that investors are going to make. We don't try to be financial planners. That's not our expertise. We are focused on investments. And there are 10 decisions you make in your lifetime that we want you to know how we feel about that decision based on the historical evidence that we have available. And we have some 200 plus tables and graphs and charts and different ways to help people understand not only how investing works, but that information is being aimed at you kind of if you're a low risk investor, if you're a high risk investor, if you're somewhere in between. We show you as best we can the historical implications, not only about return is always important, but you can never look at return without having a firm understanding about what that likely risk is that you're going to have to be able to stay the course with. So my hope is that if you have the time, and by the way, on every one of those forks in the road, we have an article, a podcast, and a video, and lots of tables. So we are there to do what we can, and it's all free. And Paul at paulmerriman.com, you got a question. I get up early in the morning, and the first thing I try to do is get on those questions. So we are truly here to help, and it is all free.
Well, it's awesome what you do, because there are other organizations that we should mention because we've had them on the show. Next Gen Personal Finance is all about teaching high school teachers so that kids get this. So teach the teachers and the students get it too. So there are so many ways coming from the private sector to fix this problem.
Tim Ranzetta is one of my true heroes, the man who started, I can't remember the lady he started it with, but they started NGPF, and they are providing free curriculum from, I think, the 6th or 7th grade through senior year of high school. And they not only is it all free for the teachers, but their teacher development, their personal development program to provide the teachers the information to be a successful teacher in an area that a lot of these teachers, they're not risk takers themselves. And so they need to be educated to what is the right way to look at all these money topics. He has the question of the day. And what a lot of people don't know, and I don't know if you guys know this, you don't have to be a teacher to go to ngpf.org to have access to the question of the day or the information on all the different topics that they are teaching young people about. And they try to be so current so that it really gets the attention of the students. They're just an amazing organization. And Tim does not take a penny of compensation. I think he works 6 days a week. And it used to be that it was only his own money that was driving that organization. He is just one of my heroes.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very familiar with that organization, and the content they provide and the support for teachers is outstanding. And this is like a year of confessions for me, but I will confess that when I was getting ready for my CFP exam, if there was something where I barely knew the basic, I would go to ngpf.org and I would go to their YouTube, make sure I had the basics and the foundation so that I could learn all of this stuff and layer it on top of that platform. And so they do an outstanding job. And you're right, they serve more than just teachers because so much of their material is public. So I love the fact that you obviously have an amazing nonprofit, but you also appreciate others in the space that's trying to do the same thing, educate people on their finances.
You know, something else that we do, I would have forgotten about this if this hadn't come up. We have a page of truth tellers. I know my days are numbered. I can't do this forever. And at the point that I can't, the question is, who can you trust? Now, there are lots of people you can trust that are not on that list. But Jim Dolly, the work that he does at the White Coat Investor, I don't care if you're a doctor or a dentist or not. He just does some of the best educational work that I know on the internet. The other people that we have there, sometimes they're not well known, but they put out information in a way that I really believe they are going to be able to help people be a better investor. And I don't cover all the estate planning, and I don't cover the things that a CFP would cover, but these people do. And so I'm also trying to give people folks that I think will be able to help them today or in the future.
And Jackie is very involved, as is NGPF, with sort of political activism in a way, trying to get this in all the states. And I want to hear from Jackie, how many states we have required financial literacy education today?
Yeah, I keep up with it. Well, I'm going to give our guest a chance to answer that question. Do you happen to know, Paul?
I think it's 26.
It is 26. Woo, you get the prize. You get the prize.
And the fact that he hires lobbyists to go talk to the people, if he knows there is a state that's in the process of considering it, he is going to spend the money to make sure that the story is told. And I hope you're one of those storytellers. That would be wonderful to learn.
Yeah, well, the most recent win was a really big win. It was the state of California.
Yeah.
They've been fighting with that one for a long time.
And it takes time. Must be frustrating to Tim. I think California goes live in 2031, if I'm not mistaken.
The way they do it is they get 4 years to get it right? Because you can't have a high school junior, now all of a sudden they got to take it. So it's in the implementation phase. I'm in Ohio. Ours got passed in 2021, and we have one more year until we can say we are fully implemented. But there's still a lot of work going on.
That's great. Well, he's remarkable. The process, I'm going to be speaking this summer at the Garrett Planning Network meeting, some of their advisors who come anyway. And I'm going to be talking about the future of financial literacy. I am so thrilled to see what is happening. We know that investing has never been easier. It has never been cheaper. We've never been as tax efficient. We've never been as diversified. The unit of return per unit of risk is so much better today than when I came in the industry in the mid 60s. And the resources on the internet can be so good. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's so much terrible information on the internet that we've just got to make sure we find a way to get our useful and I think most productive information in the hands of young investors. And it'll make a big difference, because if whatever I ended up with right now at age 81, If I had the ability to invest in 1963 when I started investing, I would have twice as much money today as I have because the costs were so high.
Right.
And we didn't even know about index funds. We didn't even know about the small cap value factor.
You always get a plug in there. And we just had you on with Rick for the battle of the ages over this topic. And we got to give a plug for what the Bogle Center for Financial Literacy is also doing at boglecenter.net and the Bogleheads Conference. They also are very passionate about financial literacy education, and they have a conference that we recommend to everybody, including our late starters. And we see parents taking their kids to Bogleheads, and we see kids taking their parents. So it's generational education. And the conference is a way to get really passionate about it. And you put all these things together and you become an expert that educates others, right, Jackie?
That's right. And we are with this show and during Financial Literacy Month, we are just going to package together all these amazing resources that Paul just mentioned that, who's my co-host? Sorry. That Bill just mentioned, our great social media maven, Diana, she may have some, but we are going to put together, like Paul was saying, some great, credible resources that you can use for education. And Paul, what you were just saying kind of struck a chord with me and our late starters. You were saying when you started way back in the day, things were so much more expensive and the investing landscape was so different. And right now is one of the easiest times in history to invest and the lowest times. So for late starters, those are other benefits that you have starting now versus maybe 20 years ago when we wish we did. We can't go back and change time, but the investing landscape piece of it has gotten a lot easier. So that part is probably going to be much easier for you today than what it may have been 20 years ago.
Well, and the earlier you start, the earlier you can retire if you get these things right without making the mistakes that we as late starters made. And, you know, it will make so much of a difference in so many people's lives, these resources that we're putting out there. Share them widely. Have them come listen to Catching Up to FI. You know, point people in the right direction when they're ready to listen.
Well, and there are things happening too in the world, in the 401k world, that are absolutely life changers. The one that is such a wonderful change. People used to go to work for most companies and they were offered a chance to be part of the program. Would you like to join our 401k plan? And we'll put some money in there to match some of the money that you put in. And it turned out very few people said yes, because you were about to take money out of my pocket and you're going to put it where I can't spend it. Look, I just got out of college or just got out of high school. I want to spend the money I'm getting. And very few people, less than 30%, were taking advantage of those early years. Now they have an opt-out program, basically, so that when you go to work for the company, you have to actually tell the company, no, I do not want to have that money taken out. 83 or 85% are now in the program from day one because they're not opting out. They're learning to live on less. And that is so big. That is a life changer for millions of people.
Well, I mean, it's important. They also have auto escalate too. As you earn more, you save more, you invest more, it grows more. And the reason we need to do this is because we live longer. People used to live on Social Security, and there's about 40% of the nation still does live on just Social Security, but we don't have to. We can't put our cash in the mattress. We have to put our cash to work for us so we don't have to work as hard and we can work a shorter amount of time.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. And I think all this education that you're doing, and just there's so many folks that are focused. Now, you and others are in the business also to build a following, and hopefully that means that it is a business that you can rely on to be here for decades. I mean, wouldn't that be great if it all worked?
That's the plan. That's the plan.
plan.
We're working on 1 million downloads and more. And we should say we're recording this the day after our 2-year anniversary. February 19th, 2023, the first episode of Catching Up to Fi dropped. So happy late birthday by 1 day to Catching Up to Fi, and many more years to go. Jackie, any final thoughts on this Financial Literacy Month?
I don't have anything other than I want people to know that to the extent that they look to us as one of those public educators, that it's going to take some work on your part. It's going to take, I'm guessing you really have got to put aside at least 20 hours of reading articles, listening to podcasts, do things that take you deep enough that you really can walk away and say, I get it. Because when you say, I get it, you are probably at least close to being able to stay the course. Because at the end of the day, if you can't stay the course, you don't get it.
Right.
So you got to take the course and you've got to stay the course.
Yeah, and I think they can obviously spread that out. And, you mentioned 20 hours I think it took me over a year to start putting all the pieces together. We hope that Catching Up to Fi will be a part of your learning process. We're going to drop Paul's nonprofit. We're going to drop all of these other resources that we just talked about, because we know we're not the only voices, but we hope to continue to be a part of your journey. Financial literacy is so important, not just for you, but also for the next generation that's coming behind you. So this was so helpful, Paul. And thank you, one, for what you're doing. Thank you for sharing with us what financial literacy means to you and how you're making an impact. It really does make a difference. So we're going to enjoy the rest of Financial Literacy Month, and we will catch you next time on Catching Up to Fi.
Thank you both. All the best to you and to your viewers and listeners.
Thanks, Paul. See you soon, my friend.
All right. See you in San Antonio.
Yes.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. Our social media maven is Diana Falk, and our editor is Fritz Brizard. We love them, and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofi.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to Fi. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to Fi. Cheers.